Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Lots of ways to get in touch with the programme. As ever, I'll remind you of them as we progress. But we'll begin with Sir Bradley of Wiggins and the very sad story that the cycling legend is accused, we should stress, of taking some medicine that he didn't need to take that would possibly have made him able to cycle faster. It's a government select committee. Ordinarily, I think that they do incredibly important work and often faultless. They're not infallible, though, are they? And neither are they necessarily experts in this field. They say that they believe riders were given a substance which helped them lose weight and maintain power. Now, I've said already that I am conscious of the possibility that I'm falling into a trap I often berate others for inhabiting when we discuss much more important issues. How could somebody accused of serial sex offences and even rapes, or in the context of American politics, how could somebody who's actually been accused of several counts of paedophilia be endorsed by anybody, actually, with a fully functioning conscience? And the answer is that there's something about them you like so much that you're prepared to overlook transgressions and misdemeanours that you ordinarily wouldn't like. So in the case of American politics, these guys are massive racists, and I love massive racism, so I don't really mind if he's a serial sex offender or indeed a paedophile. I'm still going to endorse him and give him a big thumbs up, because for me, racism trumps everything else, and if he's a massive racist, well, so what if he went out with some 13-year-old girls when he was in his 20s? You know, we've all got skeletons in our closet. So that mindset, as regular listeners to this programme will know, is utterly repellent to me. But is it kind of like the baby steps of that corruption, that mental corruption, that moral corruption, the baby steps of that moral corruption when you try to defend somebody you like who appears to have done something that you really shouldn't like? So here's my attempt to defend Sir Bradley Wiggins. First up, don't laugh, food is performance enhancing. So is water. You want to do the Tour de France, you try doing it without water. So once you make a list of things that are performance enhancing, how are you going to decide what is and what is not allowed? Answer, well, drugs. Well, okay. What about an aspirin? Am I allowed to take a paracetamol? I don't know whether this is true or not, but friends of mine who've run the marathon tell me that if they take a few paracetamol on the way round, it actually stops their muscles hurting quite as much as they would if they hadn't. So that's a performance enhancing drug, right? How's this sounding so far? Am I sounding desperate, or are you going, actually, do you know what? He might have a point for once. So what else is a performance-enhancing drug? I've got food, water, and paracetamol, right? So what Bradley Wiggins is accused of doing is getting a so-called medical exemption for, and bearing in mind that Bradley has, Sir Bradley to you, actually, Sir Bradley has serious asthma. He has asthma. It's a recorded complaint, a recorded condition. 5-time Olympic gold medal, and there is a suggestion that they ordered some medicine that he didn't really need for his asthma, but which would have helped him to cycle faster. It would have helped him to lose weight and bulk up his muscles or something. If it's not banned, okay, and if you've got a medical condition, you'd be allowed to take it. Then you have to prove you've got the medical condition to get it. I don't think that's fair. I really don't. I think either everybody competes on a level playing field. So look, here's a drug that asthmatics take. You're not asthmatic. You're allowed to take it as well. Yeah, otherwise, it just becomes so completely complicated and complex, doesn't it? How's it going now? Massive rearguard action for Bradley Wiggins because I think he's ace. But seriously, that first point's pretty strong. Food, water and paracetamol are all performance-enhancing drugs. It's an arbitrarily imposed parameter that says what you can and can't take. What they've done here is say you can take that, but only if you've got this. So then you sort of think, well, hang on a minute, how can that be fair? Surely the whole point about banned substances is that they're banned for either everybody or nobody. There will be people listening to this programme who have a better understanding of the technicalities of these issues than I do. It would, if I'm honest with you, be hard to have a worse understanding. I've spoken to a lot of the key players. I've never spoken to Wiggins, but I've spoken to the woman who used to be the head of doping. One of the most amazing interviews I've ever conducted in my life was in the aftermath of the Russian whistle blowing. You probably still don't know the full extent of the Russian doping scandal. Where were the Olympics that they held in Russia? Was it was it the Winter Olympics? It was Sochi. That's the Russian one, right? They actually had this. Come here a minute, because you're not going to believe this. They had, because they were doing the testing themselves, right? It was their laboratories in Sochi where the Winter Olympic athletes were tested. They actually had a pipe, a secret pipe, going into one of the laboratories. You'll see why I had a slip of the tongue there in a minute. Why I've just made laboratory sound a bit like lavatory. They had a secret pipe going into the laboratory that they could feed clean urine through, so that it would actually be in the laboratory and it would appear, because theoretically the security measures in place would ensure that only urine that had been through various security stages would make its way into the laboratory. You see why I made it sound like lavatory now, am I right? And they had a secret pipe going into the laboratory, presumably from the lavatory, so that they could get clean urine into the room. It was incredible, frankly, what went on there, and it still hasn't been properly understood in this country, because there's no sort of bête noire or target or dartboard for the British newspapers to stick on someone's back. And they're still, of course, hosting the World Cup, aren't they, later this year? Great, happy times. So that to me is doping. That to me is the bad stuff. A secret wee-wee pipe compared to someone taking medicine that he'd be allowed to take if he had a condition that he arguably doesn't have. He still says he does. I want to read you his statement, because he's a don. I find it so sad, says Bradley Wiggins, that accusations can be made where people can be accused of things they have never done, which are then regarded as facts. I strongly refute the claim that any drug was used without medical need. I hope to have my say in the next few days and put my side across. If you see Bradley, give him our number, won't you? 0345 606 0973. We'd love to give him that platform to put that side across. The question, the claim today is that it's not ethical, but that no rules have actually been broken. To which I say, why? Why do we do the tall poppy thing in this country? Why have we put so much effort into trying to undermine and almost pollute Bradley Wiggins' legacy? If he hasn't broken any actual rules, all he's done is push to the absolute limit the parameters of the regulation, then that's the difference between being a world beater and coming second, isn't it? Isn't that the whole point of Dave Brailsford's incremental improvement strategy? The idea that you make tiny, tiny improvements in a million different areas, and that's how you end up winning gold medals, rather than, you know, coming in every morning and nailing the same training techniques. He's denied wrongdoing for years now, and really resents the living hell, he says, that this malicious witch hunt has turned his life into. That's where the quote I just read you came from. So he got the medical exemption to have injections of something called tramquinolone to treat his asthma and his pollen allergies. And the accusation now is that he took something he didn't need to take. A jiffy bag flown out to him reportedly contained this powerful drug, which with certain medical conditions you'd be allowed to take, and without certain medical conditions you would not. The phrase you need is therapeutic use exemptions. So you can take these and other banned substances if you have a particular illness. And no one's disputing that he's got asthma. So what's going on? You tell me. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I always try to be. Sometimes, of course, I guess we all fall foul of our own preconceptions and dissonances. But I really like Bradley Wiggins. He was like a rock star sportsman. You normally only get that in snooker, or I suppose a sort of Gaza character in football, but I don't think that would happen now with the fitness levels that you need to play at the highest level. Wiggins was a legend, and this just saddens me. If he hasn't actually broken any rules, why are we making such a big fuss about this? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. If you hit the numbers now, you will get through. And speaking of sport, you know, the passing of Roger Bannister, quite rightly, is being recorded with great ceremony. I bet you don't know what the record is now for a mile, do you? I think you'll be staggered when you find out. And I am getting something of what I believe the kids call a coating this morning. Not unanimous coating, but you're making some brilliant points that I am going to struggle to refute. Amir, for example, says, knowing that something is not within the spirit of the law and then pushing it to the edge of its limits, isn't that what MPs did with their expenses? How did you feel about that? And would you apply the same feelings to Sir Bradley? By the way, I'm a big fan of his too. Yeah, OK. Give me a moment, all right? I'm doing all this live. I'll find a way of batting that one away imminently. And Luke says, I'm completely on the same page as you, Ree Wiggins. However, I am conflicted re the ethical point. As we say, it's fine for an athlete to push the limit legally, but then are aghast when Starbucks, for example, do the same when paying little or no tax, quotes, legally, end quotes. That's a brilliant point. But I can call for a change in the law regarding the taxation situation that Starbucks, in my view, abuses. I can call for a change in the law on that. So I can call for a ban. Look, if you don't like this stuff, ban corticosteroids. That's fine. But until they're banned, you can't have a go, oh, man, am I going to get away with this? Am I going to say that sports people operate under different moral parameters to business people? They're chasing medals. They're not putting money into their shareholders' pockets that should have remained in the pockets of their staff and customers. I don't know. Neil's in Lytham, St Anne's, lovely part of the world. Neil, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello, Neil.
It's just about, obviously, the Bradley Wiggins thing that you discussed in this morning.
It is, obviously, yes.
Obviously, yeah. Can I ask you what it is that you admire so much about Bradley Wiggins, first of all?
Yeah, you can.
You know, you said you think he's great.
I do, yeah. Well, two things. I mean,
I don't either.
He won lots of gold medals, but obviously lots of other people have done that as well. I mean, mate, I'm just a kid. I think he's a dude.
Right.
He reminds me of Paul Weller.
Well, yeah.
And he dresses like a don. I've got a soft spot for menswear. My career started. If it wasn't for John Major, I'd still be there. And Bradley Wiggins wears a whistle like very few men do. He's got a real sense of style.
Yeah.
You know, like a Bill Nye or a Martin Freeman is another man who...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you did ask.
Yeah, I did. More so to the point, though, cycling. I think drugs and cycling go together like fish and chips, to be honest. It's not a new thing, is it?
No.
You know, you go
Lance Armstrong it hangs over the sport like Banquo's ghost.
Is you know, one of the sort of, the big name in that sort of field. But before that, you've got Tommy Simpson, Marco Pantani, plenty of other...
I'll tell you a word for it. Don't get me sued, though.
Well, professional teams that have been busted. Has it been the case, though, that Sky have not actually been up and above board when it's come to answering questions?
Well, you tell me. You seem to know an awful lot more about it than I do, which don't get too big for your boots. That's not hard.
No. I know no more than what any other keen cyclist would know.
Yeah, well, that's more than me. So Sky have questions to answer. As I understand it, here's a drug. If you've got this condition, you can take it. They said he'd got it, the condition, so he took the drug.
Yeah, it's a grey area, though, isn't it, really? You know, I think within cycling, certainly, for my opinion, and that's all I'm here to give, my opinion, it's not as clean as what it's like to make. You know, as regards Bradley Wiggins and the gold medals that he won at the Olympics and the Tour de France, he was actually pulled around the Tour de France by Chris Froome, who, again, in my opinion,
but now you're going all tactical. You're not going newsy. This is the politics of Team Sky, and there's no love lost between those two characters, I gather, or indeed between their respective partners. And Froome, in many ways, has been treated quite harshly by the history books because his achievements have eclipsed Wiggins's in many. God, I know more about cycling than I realise now.
Yeah, it's just one of those subjects, you know, where I don't think you're ever going to get to the bottom of it, and I don't think personally it's going to end anytime soon. Maybe it's a case of some cyclists not have to take drugs, but if they want to be, up at the front of the peloton, they have to take an advantage where they can get it. It isn't ethically right. We know this.
But if we break it down, and this is where the tax parallel and the MP's expenses parallel leaves me with a fair amount of egg on my face, perhaps. But if we break it down to this, have laws been broken? No. Does it feel as if the behaviour conducted is against the spirit of the law, the spirit of the games? Yes. I kind of think that's a little bit namby-pamby. That's a little bit... It doesn't really recognise the industrialised nature of modern sport. This isn't... What's the French fella that invented the Olympics, Neil? What was his name? Come on, mate.
You tell me.
I can't do this on my own.
Why not? You do it most mornings.
Don't be cheeky. Anyway, that French fella that invented the Olympics, it's all amateurish, and those days are over. You take any advantage you can without actually breaking the law, don't you? Isn't that what they've done? And what's the difference between this and a paracetamol or a Mars bar?
Well, I know you mentioned earlier on, didn't you, about friends of yours that that were running the marathon. They're not actually, they're not professional athletes, though, are they? And neither are they being sponsored by the National Lottery either. No. These things all feed into the, that feed into the issue. I really don't think, if Bradley Wiggins has done nothing wrong, and I'm not saying that he has, or any, questions have been put to himself and they've been put to Sky, and it's up to them to come out and to answer those questions that have been put to them as regards any matters such as what we're discussing now.
Yeah, I'm on a hiding to nothing with this. I still really like him, though.
I don't dislike him at all. Like I say,
But you should feel more let down. It was a bit like the Brendan Cox story, where everyone expects you, because you share his views on racism, everyone expects you to defend him when he gets into trouble. My disappointment in a man like that is double my disappointment in a sex pest from the pro-racism side of British politics. And this guy, the more you like him, the more disappointed you should feel. So I'm embarked upon that mental process at the moment, whereby I'm trying to persuade myself that what he's done, allegedly, even if he were found to have done it, wouldn't be that bad. But an awful lot of people seem to know a lot more about it than I do. For example, Chris Roberts. Neil, thank you, who's tweeted at Mr. James O.B. to say, here it is from the actual report, from the evidence that has been received by the committee regarding the use of triamcinolone at Team Sky during the period under investigation, and particularly in 2012, we believe that, here you go, this powerful corticosteroid was being used to prepare Bradley Wiggins and possibly other riders supporting him for the Tour de France. It's a belief. The purpose of this was not to treat medical need, but to improve his power and weight ratio. So he benefited from the performance-enhancing properties of the drug during the race, they allege. And then in the actual report, this does not constitute a violation of the WADA code. That's the World Anti-Doping Agency. But it does cross the ethical line that Dave Brailsford, who's the head of Team Sky, says he himself drew for Team Sky. So the report says that it was being used by Team Sky within the WADA rules. I'm back, I'm afraid, like a renegade master. That's fine. It's within the WADA rules. Why are we getting so worked up about this? Answer tall poppy syndrome. We hate to see people succeed in this country, especially if they're a bit working class, like Bradley Wiggins is. Although Sebastian Coe takes a bit of a kicking in the same report as well. 28 after 10. Steve's in Sheffield. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to start with, James, I'm with you. I think he's a dude. I think he's cracking.
He is, isn't he?
Possibly.
I know, but that just means we're sort of fangirls, doesn't it, Steve?
Yeah, I know. I mean, what endeared me to him, as well as a lot of people from Liverpool, straight away when he won one of his gold medals, and he said, "Oh, you've got contact from the Queen," and he said, "Well, no, wait there, I got a text from God referring to Robbie Fowler," which he was happy with. Just straight away, a Liverpool fan loved him around the country.
What's happened with Oxlade-Chamberlain? What are they getting out of Oxlade-Chamberlain up there that they couldn't get out of him down here?
Yeah, but that's the difference between Arsene Wenger and Klopp when you've got a manager who actually puts a bit
of
effort into you and stuff. But that's going on a bit of a tangent.
By the by, carry on, Steve.
I'll happily talk about Liverpool for hours.
No, you can't, mate. I get into all sorts of bother.
No, it's not a problem. But yeah, Witch Hunt, I understand where he's coming from. Maybe because he is a bit, not anti-establishment, but he's a bit of a rogue. Yeah. He's a bit of a kind of guy, isn't he? He's a bit of a lad, bit of a two fingers up. Yeah, I'm great at this. And I mean, the point I was making to your researcher was footballers, ex-footballers often say, and pundits come on and say, they trained and they played at 80% fitness. They were often given injections at half-time when they got a twinge or something. Or is all of that tested? What's in all of that?
Yeah.
A lot of these sportsmen actually just kind of...
I mean, you're going off on a tangent as well. But you're saying one rule for all across all sports. The football things are usually like industrial strength painkillers, so that people play through conditions that they should really be resting up, but they can anaesthetise themselves. I suppose this is slightly different, but it's one whistleblower. This is the quote from Dr. Richard Freeman, I think, no, this is a quote from Team Sky. The report makes the serious claim that medication has been used by the team to enhance performance. We strongly refute this. So, I mean, even the thing...
So you've got to ban everything.
Yeah, well, and also you've got to prove that he's used it. They haven't proved that he's used it.
So actually putting this out now, where it's just an allegation as one whistleblower, just puts a whole negative thing. No wonder he's going to come out, because I'd be kicking off if I was him.
I would be as well.
Getting really angry and whatever. But as you say, are we just being this because we really like him?
Yeah, well, that is the danger, isn't it? That's the problem of being a lefty liberal snowflake, is that you're constantly examining your own behaviour as much as you examine other people's. I'd love to be more right-wing, and then I could just do sort of untruths and misleading deceptions every day while pretending that my side have got all the answers and the other side are all corrupt. But I'm doing a bit today with Bradley. Vote Bradley. Vote Wiggins, vote often. Steve, thank you. I promise you, before 11 o'clock, tell you what the current record is. Roger Bannister, R.I.P., passes away, the master of the 4-minute mile, the man who broke it for the very first time in human history. What an astonishing achievement. But when I tell you what it is now, you'll be absolutely flabbergasted. And it's an astonishing statistic. As we quite rightly mark the passing of Sir Roger Bannister, an athletic legend, but a fascinating man in many ways. He was a real... It was a real one-off. If you learn more about his career and his decisions and his training regimes, he kind of refused to listen to anybody else except himself, and got that 4-minute mile, arguably against competition internationally that in the great scheme of things achieved more within athletics than he managed to do, but which got him that 4-minute mile. He got over the line. Everything was geared towards that, the training regime. But I asked you what you think the current record is for the mile, because we're making such a fuss about the first man to break the 4-minute mile. The answer, astonishingly, is 3 minutes 43.13 seconds. So they've already shaved more than a quarter of a minute off the record. So here's another question for you, and I'm going to take Ian's word for this, because he appears to be fulfilling the role of pocket calculator with his text of the programme this morning. If they've started doing this on another radio station, they start doing puzzles in the morning. I like this one. If the current record holder for the mile is 3 minutes 43.13 seconds, how many metres behind him would Sir Roger Bannister have been if he turned in his record-breaking mile performance? So the current record holder is 3 minutes 43.13. Bannister went over just under 4 minutes. How many metres would separate the two? We don't really run miles anymore. It's the 1,500 metres that's the closest. After Brexit, we'll be able to bring back the mile. We can turn up at the Olympics. Our fellas will be running a mile. Everyone else will be running 1,500 metres, which means we'll actually be running further than them. But it doesn't matter. Under Brexit logic, that will still be taking our country back and getting back control. How many metres behind the current holder of the record for running a mile would Sir Roger Bannister be if he turned in his record-breaking amount? I'm going to write this down, otherwise I'm going to lose it. OK, now back to Sir Bradley Wiggins, who I'm increasingly persuaded is the victim of something a little bit sinister. But I'm also conscious of the fact that because I happen to really like him, I may be working a little bit too hard to defend him from some of these allegations. Let's find out what Kate in Brixton thinks. Kate, what do you want to say?
Hi, James.
Hello, Kate.
Like you, I was a huge Bradley Wiggins fan. I mean, I thought the guy... Do you remember at the end of his Tour de France win, he was standing up on the Champs-Élysées getting, you know, his champagne and all the various... the check and blah, blah, blah. And he says, hang on, I've just got to draw the lottery wins. And I thought that was so cool.
Yes.
I mean, what kind of guy thinks in that sort of weird, wonderful way? You know, that was just one of many things. And when he sat down on that throne during the Olympics, and you know,
he's a dude. But you sound as if you're disappointed in him, Kate.
I'm terribly disappointed. But he's not just Wiggins. I put a lot of it down to Sky, because do you remember when Sky Cycling first, burst onto the scene?
Yes, Team Sky.
Sorry?
Team Sky.
Thank you, Team Sky. Yes. And Dave Brailsford said, you know, to great publicity, that they were going to be whiter than white, purer than pure, and any sort of progress was going to be down to the marginal gains, you know, the suit, the helmet, the this, the that,
yes.
the other. And then suddenly you began to get, quite extraordinary results. But a lot of the teams on Tour de France, and I just love the Tour de France, began saying, hang on, what's going on here? And they didn't entirely accept that a good cyclist, because Wiggins was a damn good cyclist, could suddenly become a world beater. And they started, lots of the other teams started to have queries. And the way Sky acted with the...
But they haven't, they're not found to have done anything wrong.
Hold on, James.
I will hold on, Kate.
Sorry.
That's all right.
It's be rude.
No, that's okay. I do it every day.
Do you remember there was a very good cyclist called Dave Miller who won, I think he won a couple of stages on the Tour. And in a programme recently, and he said this before, this tricyclone, or whatever the name is absolutely mind-blowing. It's a really, really powerful drug, which...
Well, then ban it for everyone.
It is banned unless you get this...
But then it's not banned for everyone.
All right, ban it for everyone, but there's always another drug that takes his place.
That's not our problem. He can only operate within the rules that have been written. You can't expect Bradley Wiggins to be writing the rules and racing the races.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going a little bit broader than Wiggins.
You're not. You're probably being more sensible than I am, but I'm blinded by my admiration. Corticosteroids. If you're telling me they should always be banned in all circumstances, then I'll grant you that's a valid proposition. But until they are, Bradley Wiggins hasn't done anything wrong. Well, he still denies even taking it, but this whistleblower appears to be credible, at least in the view of the Common Select Committee. So either you ban them all. It is a bit like tax avoidance. You can sit here and say, I think these big companies should pay more tax, but I don't think they should do it voluntarily. I think the law should be changed to make sure that they have to. And you can say the same here. I think you can. I really do, increasingly.
All right, except just like accountants,
yes.
Heads of Tour de France teams or other cycling teams are always going to find another drug to boost performance. And then if they have compliant doctors, medical doctors, they're going to get their TUEs. And this is just, it's just life.
That's the point. So you just get your friendly doctor to sign. There's no suggestion that that's what's happened here. Well, there probably is a suggestion that that's what happened here. But no, yeah, all right, steady on. Law for journalists is a tiny bit rusty. But it's a suggestion that's routinely and robustly denied by Team Sky. And
But he didn't even keep records, for God's sake.
Why would you?
Because you have to show that you have to be.
I'm not very good at this.
What?
I'm not very good at this.
At what?
Kind of defending a slightly dodgy position just by throwing out sound bites and shouting you down. I'm going to try a bit harder. Make America great again.
I just feel that
yeah, but you're just ignoring the elephant in the room, Kate, which is immigration.
Oh, God. Jesus. Sorry, excuse me.
That's quite all right. No, that's
sorry.
Perfectly understandable.
No, look, I think it is very, very sad. And I think if Wiggins had been cycling with another top team, a really, really top team, who've got long traditions in preparing for and winning the big, the
yes.
3-week tours. I mean, this is an incredible endurance. I think it's probably the most grueling endurance sport there is. 3 weeks.
Oh, I don't know. You got Eddie Izzard ran a marathon every day for a year, didn't he? Also, I may have got that slightly wrong. I may have exaggerated.
I meant team sport.
Yeah, I grant you. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, if your admiration for Bradley was previously a 9, what is it now?
5.
Oh, Kate. Oh, Kate. Oh, a dagger to the heart. Kate, have a lovely day. It's 10:44. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. So, Bannister's time was 3:59.4. Hicham El Gerouj, a Moroccan athlete whose name you probably didn't know prior to today. I'm judging you by my own standards of ignorance. His current record for the mile is 3:43.13. I'm taking Ian's word for it because I'm not very good at sums. So if Roger Bannister, when he broke the record, put in 3:59.4 and the current record holder puts in 3:43.13, by how much would Hicham beat Sir Roger if they were racing at those speeds today? Someone who's even worse at sums than me has said it's impossible to work out because you don't know the rate at which they're running. You only need to have the totals, mate, to work out and then divide it to get the average per metre and then compare. So you will get a number at the end of that process that tells you what the difference would be at the end. I see your point, actually. You mean that they've run faster on the home straight than they do anywhere else. Stop splitting hairs. This is a puzzle designed to keep you listening as we head towards the break. You know, and I'm not going to lie to you, this hasn't gone extremely well. Ian, mate, you seem to be the only one that arrived at the answer you've arrived at. Everyone else is sort of hovering around the 111 metres mark. The fellow who actually posed the question, or inspired the question, of what would the difference be between Roger Bannister and the current holder of the mile record if they were to race against each other now, I just presumed that you were right, but there's quite a lot. But Kevin in Finchley, mate, is certainly not 33.5 metres, you lemon. It's roughly the length of the home straight, isn't it? So Roger Bannister would have been 113 metres behind the current record holder, according to maths. But interest, I love that line, according to maths. God, that used to matter, that phrase, before Brexit. According to maths, it used to be a thing in this country. But interestingly, Bannister's 1,500-metre record is almost exactly the same as the current mile record, which makes it 109 metres, says Connor in Surrey. So there you go. That's the end of that. And yes, thank you, please. Thank you. 10 minutes to 11, you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where Bradley Wiggins seems to me to be getting slightly unfairly treated, although I have a sense within that possibly I'm trying a little bit too hard to defend him. Michael Holt agrees with me. Michael, of course, is a professional snooker player, operates under the moniker The Hitman. He says, the British hate winners. Few of you have made this point, actually. We prefer a kind of flawed genius like Paul Gascoigne to a proven world beater like Andy Murray. We give the latter a hard time for being grumpy, while treat the former's fairly severe decline as a national spectator sport. But Holty says, British hate winners. We love to drag them down. Pathetic. How many of the critics would do the same thing in the same position? Most of them. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone, etc., etc. At the end of the day, he hasn't broken any rules, which is quite close to my position, but again, I accept it may not be an entirely defensible position. Jamie's in Chester. Jamie, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. You asked the question earlier on why it matters if he's within the rules, which is kind of what you've just reiterated there. And you were given some examples of people being criticised for pushing the rules outside of sport.
Yes.
I just wanted to give examples from within sport where, well, my overarching point is going to be that winning at all costs is generally not seen as acceptable, and where the literal lines are for the rules is not always seen as where they should be. So just to kind of give a handful of examples, in terms of actual sportsmanship, you've got in every football game a player goes down injured, a team kicks the ball out, and then the team will give them the ball back at the throw-in.
Yeah.
So there's no rule that they have to do that, but if they don't, they tend to be criticised for it. If you're winning at all costs, you keep the ball.
No, don't be soft.
You've got specific examples.
Get off, you're not having that.
Well, I'm
But you stood on the sidelines with the ball up your jumper going, no, you can't have it back. No.
No. I mean, your team would keep possession of the ball rather than giving it back to the other team if you wanted to win at all costs.
What do you mean?
As in, a player goes down injured.
I see. Oh, your sportsmanship. Sorry, so I didn't realise a player had gone down injured. I thought it was a throw-in, and the fellow on the sidelines was refusing to give it to the other fellow to throw it back into the play again. So you're just, but that has happened. People have ignored someone lying on the floor and gone on to score a goal. It's a convention, not a rule.
Yeah, that's right. But it's not generally seen as the thing to do. You've then got specific examples of sportsmanship, and tennis tends to have quite a lot of them. So there was one a couple of years ago where Jack Sock was playing Leighton Hewitt, and Leighton Hewitt served, the ball was called out, and Jack Sock said to him, that was in if you want to challenge it. And effectively cost himself a point because the ball was in.
And we all like him for that.
Yeah, well, tennis players tend to do that.
Well, yeah, just move along a bit. Just give me a central point. I'm enjoying this World of Sport tour, but I want to move. We've got football, tennis. We're supposed to be talking about cycling.
In terms of the actual rules, so a couple of examples of rules being broken or not. One is in cricket, once the batsman's hit it, you're not allowed to interfere with the ball.
You've got cricket now?
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to cycling because I don't know much about it.
All right, go on.
So once you're not allowed to interfere with it or you're out. But generally speaking, if a lot of the times, at least in the amateur level, if a batsman hits it and it kind of lands at his foot, he'll pick it up and throw it to the wicketkeeper.
Yes.
He should be out for that, but he generally isn't.
Okay, I understand your point. You'll allow me to praise it. What you're saying is essentially good sportsmanship demands certain levels of behaviour that Team Sky appear to have broken.
Yeah, and there was one more example that I wanted to give.
What? Oh, no, is it hockey?
Of a team staying within the rules,
hockey.
But being punished for it anyway.
I bet it's hockey.
It's not hockey.
Well, what is it then, curling?
It's American football.
Oh, my God, even worse. Go on, then.
In 2000, it was about 10 years ago, you're obviously allowed to watch the other team when they're playing the game and seeing what plays they're doing, but their playbook, the plays that they're playing, is a very important piece of information. And basically what happened was the New England Patriots filmed the team from that team's own sideline so they could see more information than they would see ordinarily on the TV cameras.
Right.
That's not actually against the rules, but it was found to be grossly in breach of the spirit of them, and they were punished very severely for it.
How? If they hadn't broken any rules, how did they get punished?
Literally, that's what they were punished for being grossly...
But how were they punished? Did they lose points? Were they demoted? What? Did they have to run around town in their undercrackers?
They were fined $500,000 and lost their first-round pick.
What, even though they hadn't broken any rules?
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it. That's an astonishing array of examples and comparisons there. I've rather lost sight of what it was we were discussing in the first place, but I now know a little bit more about football, American football and cricket. Was there another sport you brought into it as well?
Tennis.
Tennis, there you go. 10:55 is the time. He's right, though. I'm teasing him. There is a sense here that it's good sportsmanship that has been perhaps breached, but that's why it's important to remind ourselves that they still refute the claims of the whistleblower, and I don't see how closure, to use that dreadful word, could ever be reached. 0345 606 0973 if you want to chip in quickly before the end of the hour. Alec is in Leicester. Alec, what would you like to say?
Just on the point of ethics in sport.
Yeah.
All great winners. There's no ethics in sports whatsoever if you're a great winner.
Leighton Hewitt?
Even he would cross many lines.
Jamie's example was quite good, wasn't it? I mean, it's probably the best example of all, actually, when the umpire or the ref makes a mistake and the opponent points it out so that the other side benefit from your honesty. That does actually happen. I appreciate it's not universal, but it does happen, mate.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher, Maradona, all those great sportsmen. Maradona praised his own country.
Massive cheat.
Massive cheat, but praised his own country and a great sportsman.
Massive cheat, though.
Yeah, but he's a great sportsman.
Mate, there's a big difference between having a scoop of something that came over in a jiffy bag and no one's 100% sure what it is, and handballing a goal into the net during the World Flipping Cup.
Did he win?
What?
Did he win?
No. I told you I was rubbish at this. I should have said that. He took back control. He took back control of the ball, you snowflake. Or something. Or something like that. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you admire Bradley Wiggins yesterday?
The same amount as I do today. Everyone's going to push the rules. And no, everyone's. I mean, there's a point of ethics where you're breaking the law, sport, and enhancing drugs and all that lot. But you're always going to find people that are going to be pushing the limits. I mean, you look at what they used to travel in the Tour de France with their sweaty jumpers and everything.
Yeah, and they stop for a woodbine halfway.
Are they cheating now?
Stop for a smoke halfway around. No, that was my central point at the beginning about food, drink and paracetamol. But a lot of people are quite concerned that this does open the door towards all sorts of parallel claims from the worlds of business and finance. Listen, I've called off that quiz because it's too complicated. Nick's been in touch. Nick the Wolfman, who I happen to know is a Cambridge United fan. He says, just out of interest, why, when talking about the mile record, is the answer to the question you asked given in metres? I know I can multiply metres by 39 and then divide by 36 to get it in yards to keep parity with the distance unit. Mate, seriously, get lost. It's coming up to 10:59. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I'm going with about 111 metres as the answer to that question, and we're moving on. I think we're also moving on from the question of Bradley Wiggins without any real sense of certainty on it. I'm sticking with my guns, though, on this. Until you provide incontrovertible evidence, I think it all smells a bit. And it does seem to me, as a few people have suggested, that if you were from a more humble background, then the media, the so-called establishment, seems to go after you in a way that perhaps it doesn't for people who went to schools like mine. I could be wrong about that. We'll